This morning, we spoke with ESPN's Jay Bilas, who was on the call tonight for BYU at Gonzaga. Why Jay gives BYU a shot at Gonzaga, the Cougars' eventual fit in the Big 12 Conference when that time comes, and how Jay is connected to Mark Pope through a former teacher. Here's that interview. Jay, as an East Coast guy, how do you get yourself ultimately ready for an 11 p.m. Eastern tip start at Gonzaga?
Well, I'm a West Coast guy, actually. I grew up in Los Angeles, so even though I live east now, I still think of myself as a West Coast guy. So my clocks are always set to Pacific time, so that's no problem.
Perfect.
Fantastic.
That's no problem. Okay, obviously a big game for BYU, trying to take down Gonzaga. Gonzaga could be the new number one if they win out this week, with Baylor going down. BYU's a 14.5-point dog. What are your kind of initial thoughts on this matchup?
It should be easy for BYU. I mean, Gonzaga's only won 160 games in a row in McCarthy. So, you talk about a layup for Mark Pope and the Cougars. I can't imagine, you could have an easier game. So chalk one up in the win column and move on to St. Mary's should be no problem at all.
Jay, let's say
we wish, man.
Yeah. Let's say Gonzaga does hold serve as the heavy favorite tonight against BYU. With Baylor losing, are the Zags again the clear number one in your opinion with a win over BYU?
They may be number one. There's no clear number one this year. You could make an argument for 4 or 5 teams, maybe more, as being the best team. Last year was a little bit extraordinary where you had an undefeated Gonzaga team and then a Baylor team that would have been undefeated absent COVID. Now, COVID took away a game between Gonzaga and Baylor in December, I believe, in Indianapolis that got canceled because of COVID issues. But, you have to count yourselves as lucky to have a season like that where you have 2 teams that are so dominant. This year we don't have that, and people can think that's good or bad. This year's more of what I would call a normal year where, we don't have an undefeated team into the middle of January. Heck, there wasn't an undefeated football team, so how could we expect to have an undefeated basketball team? But Gonzaga is very, very good. They're not as good as they were last year, but they're still really good. But they're gettable. I think you play well. They're not as great of a shooting team as they've been, but they're still unusually good passing and cutting team. That I think they're shooting 62% on twos this year, which is less than they did last year, but it still leads the nation. So they get a lot of layups out of their half-court offense. And that's really going to be a key for BYU is how much can they make Gonzaga play half-court ball rather than play in transition and be able to play against a defense that's not set or even play ahead of the defense if there's a turnover or a quick shot that leads to a run-out.
Yeah, Caleb Lunder was talking about that this week. He said, we got, blitzed the first couple of minutes last time. We got to get back in transition. So that means BYU might not hit the glass as much, which brings us to the front court conversation. Certainly if BYU has Gavin Baxter and Richard Harward, you at least feel like, hey, maybe the Cougars can make some shots and play a little defense and hang in this thing. But when you're throwing a talented but young freshman Fousseyni Traore out there from Mali against Chet Holmgren and Drew Timme, that's certainly a tall order for BYU's front court.
It's difficult, but, that's always a decision that any coach has to make is how many do you send to the offensive glass. And, you can send 1, or 2 or you big guys and then try to get back. But one of the ways you can slow down a transition team is by pounding the offensive glass and making them stick around to make sure they don't give up second shots. So a lot of it's going to come down to the quality of shot that BYU is able to get. If you're taking a ton of threes, those make long rebounds and can lead to runouts. And if you take quick shots that aren't expected, those can lead to some runouts. But it's a different challenge to play. Like St. Mary's, and that was a rock fight that BYU and St. Mary's played. Either team, the referees allowed it to be a hockey game, and then you had open shots being missed, and I think those two things are connected. But as you guys know, St. Mary's plays a very deliberate style. They're a much slower, lower possession team. And Gonzaga is not that. I mean, they're gonna push it, and so it's going to be a real challenge for like somebody like a Tiki Aliatiki played really. He might have had his best game against St. Mary's.
Absolutely,
but he'll probably struggle a little bit more in a faster game where quicker decisions. Sometimes, especially for a freshman big guy, it's a lot easier to play in a slower game. And so it'll be a little bit more challenge for him. But I'm not sure, honestly, that the challenge is just in the front court. I think, Gonzaga runs so much quality. It's almost like a European-style offense or international offense. So you're going to be guarding different guys in different actions. So it's not necessarily front court versus front court as much as it is, you got to have 5 guys alert to take away all the things that Gonzaga does. And it can wear on you during the course of a game. And, you make defensive mistakes, you give up layups. Those can be pretty deflating.
ESPN college basketball insider and analyst Jay Bilas is with us on BYU Sports Nation. The Cougars off to a 14-3 start. We've already talked about losing their 2 main big men in the front court. Jay, in your estimation, how has BYU been able to piece together a season where they've only lost 3 times in 17 games thus far?
I think they're kind of a grinding team, and I don't mean that in any way other than they find ways to win. So they've won ugly at times. They've won making threes. I mean, Alex Barcelo is one of the best players in the country that probably doesn't get the credit for it. I mean, there aren't 3 or 4 guys that are in his class as a shooter, and he makes not only threes, but he's got a good mid-range game, and he's a very creative finisher around the basket, going off, his left leg, right leg, floater, runner. He's got a well-rounded game as a scorer, and he's seen every defense that can be thrown at a player. But he's got to be the guy. There are other guys on the BYU roster that can score. They've got guys that can score. But Barcelo, I think, has to become more aggressive, looking for his shot, and that'll help open some things. It's not that he has to score every time, but just being aggressive, looking for it. He's so unselfish. I think it goes against his nature to think shot first. But I actually think that would help their offense if he would become even more of a hunter of shots rather than and I'm not saying he's doing a bad job. The guy's averaging 17 points a game and shooting an ungodly percentage. He's a great player, but a little more of a me first thought on offense, I actually think could help his teammates get some opportunities.
What a novel concept in 2022. You're asking someone to be selfish. It's great. I love it. Okay, let's talk about the WCC. San Francisco has joined Gonzaga, BYU, and St. Mary's as a team that's trying to get, an at-large bid. Should Gonzaga, win the league in Vegas. Do you feel like it's 4-bid league right now? Lenardi feels pretty confident San Francisco's in at this point.
Yeah, I think San Francisco's really good. I had them. I haven't seen them in person this year. I had them last year against Virginia, and those guards are really good. I mean, Bouye and Shabazz are legit. And Todd Golden does a really good job with them. They're believers. And do I think they're as good as Gonzaga? No. But there's nobody else in the league that they cannot beat. And so with Gonzaga, San Francisco, BYU, those are 3 tournament teams. And I think St. Mary's is a tournament team. I saw them out in Vegas in the Maui Invitational. This sounds a little bit odd to say, but they played really well and had a great opportunity to beat Wisconsin. So I think there's a very good chance you see those teams all in the NCAA tournament. But the truth is, the games that all those teams have against each other are the most important. Like, you don't want to drop a game against Pacific or Pepperdine. It's not like you can't, you can lose those games. You can lose one, but you can't lose very many. But the games you have against the top 4 in the league are going to determine the tournament bids and how you play against Gonzaga. Like, you can't get blown out. You have to play well in that game because I think you'll get credit for playing well. Look, nobody gets great credit for a loss, but how you play in those games against Gonzaga, I think will be a factor.
Jay, Mark Pope, in his 2 years, has BYU certainly pacing in the right direction. In 2020, had the tournament actually taken place, the Cougars were a projected 6th seed. BYU was an actual 6th seed last year that lost to a UCLA team that got hot and went to the Final Four. What are your impressions of Mark Pope as a coach and what he's doing at BYU now into Season 3?
Well, I think Mark's an outstanding coach. He started his career at Washington and wound up playing for Rick Pitino, Kentucky, on that historically great '96 NCAA championship team. And He actually played for Rich Belcher in high school in Washington, who was my freshman English teacher and the guy that I actually played for in Los Angeles. So we have that in common. But I think he's doing a great job. And as you guys know, BYU isn't the easiest place to recruit to, but there are some really good advantages there. I mean, one of it's both an advantage and a disadvantage because of the missions that players go on. It's not like they can sit and work on their games while they're on missions, but when you get them back, you can have an older team, and I think that helps a little bit. It's a give and take on it. There are pluses and minuses, but the pluses are significant, and so I think they play a mature game as an older team. They've got a really old backcourt. And Tejon Lucas, I watched at Milwaukee, and he's a really good player and one of the underrated passers and handlers in the country. So BYU's legit, and Mark does a great job with him. He's got such a great demeanor. He's very positive. It's not that he doesn't hold players accountable, but I think he shows that you don't have to be some screaming maniac to get guys to play for you and to play together. So that's kind of refreshing, and he's fun. He doesn't take himself too seriously. I mean, some of these coaches act like they're the president of the United States. I mean, it's not that big of a deal, but he has a pretty good sense of who he is and where he is, and I really appreciate that.
To your point about missions, one of the kind of unique rules there is, you could play basketball, but you can only play on half court. So, return missionaries, they have no transition game, Jay. It's just all in the half court, probably 3-on-3, you know what I'm saying?
And it's really hard to play in short sleeves and a tie. So that's something that the NCAA probably should step in on. That's probably an unnecessary restriction that sets the guys back a little bit.
BYU athletes on missions need an NIL deal with like suit companies, Men's Warehouse or something. I did want to ask you if you felt like, when you both were in your prime that you could take Mark Pope in the post. Do you feel like you could take him?
I could foul him. I don't know if I could take him. I don't even remember what it was like to play. I'm so old now. I love it when people say, well, when you played, what did you do in these situations? I go, when I played, there was no 3-point shot. And I used to laugh when people would ask, well, what did you do for the Duke Carolina game? What did you guys do during the daytime? To occupy your time for a 9:00 game. I go, we didn't play 9:00 games back then. It was never dark when we played. We played 1:00 Saturday games. That's back when it was more college sports instead of the NBA. It's totally different now.
Jay, BYU is a year and a half out from joining the Big 12, and we all know the gauntlet that basketball schedule will be for a team like BYU. So for the Cougars to be a tournament team as they transition into that loaded conference, what's the key? What do they need to do? What do they need to change as they make the move to the Big 12?
I think the only thing that any team making that move has to do is continue to recruit at a high level. And, just for example, like Fus Traore is going to be a junior, I believe, by the time they make that move. And he's going to be ready to play in that league by the time he gets there. It's not that he couldn't handle it now, but he'll be far more prepared. So continuing to recruit big bodies, guys that can handle, because it's more of a pounding, and it's not necessarily, the top teams in the league. There's nobody in that league that BYU can't play with. I'm not suggesting that. What I'm saying is, and look, this is no disrespect to the West Coast Conference, but you got some breathers in that league, and there are games that you play where you're not playing against, these physical specimens. Every team in the Big 12, it has talent and has players and has big bodies and has big time athletes. And so even when you're playing a team that's at the bottom of the league, they can physically hang and make it difficult. So, it can wear you down if you don't have the right body. So, recruiting's always an issue when you're in a Power 5 league.
I'm sweating thinking about playing in the Big 12 right now.
You'll have a blast. It'll be fun.
Yeah.
Obviously the road trips will be different. It'll be a lot different going to, West Virginia and Lawrence, Kansas, but you won't believe how good the arenas are. I mean, every game is loaded, and that's more fun. And again, I don't want to be disrespectful to any program, but, look, players, especially after they got out of college, when they talk about their careers, they're not going to be saying, hey, remember that game we played against Pacific? And again, no disrespect, but it's true. But every game they play in that league is going to be more important. And the truth is, players want to play in important games, and the coaches may not like it because the more important games you play, the more chances you have to lose. But there's a difference between, like every game's important. I don't want to suggest that, but there's a difference between important and big, and that's the way I should have probably phrased it. Is the games in the Big 12 are going to be bigger, and that's going to be more fun for everybody.
I can't think of many scenarios where I'd trade Malibu for a place like Lubbock, but going to the Big 12 is something that BYU is very excited about and would do so.
Hey, look, I grew up not far from Malibu, and it's great. But Buddy Holly did not grow up in Malibu. He grew up in Lubbock. And Malibu does not have drive-through liquor stores. Lubbock does. There's some real positives there that you guys, and I realize I'm talking to people at BYU.
Wrong audience.
So the liquor stores may not be as popular, but it's still a nice feature.
Oh, Jay, great to talk with you. I think my last question is, did you get an A in that freshman English class?
I got A's in all my classes. Don't you realize who you're talking to?
I knew it. I shouldn't have asked.
That's the story I'm going to tell.
Nice.
Whether it's true or not, I will leave it up to you.
Fantastic. Jay, enjoy the call tonight. We look forward to listening to you as BYU and Gonzaga face up for the first time in 2022. Thanks so much.
Thank you, guys. Great being with you.
Follow him at Jay Bilas, and it is a worthy Twitter follow. He's incredible.
That was great.